whole of human history is full of secrets and mysteries. In fact, even now, in the age of science and technology, our whole world order is causing thousands of questions, many of which cannot be fully answered by scientists. Time Puzzle Crew tries to uncover some of those mysteries surrounding the mysterious places of Kazakhstan.
Kalbinskaya Upland is an ancient formation stretching from the large Itish Bend at the mouth of the Narim River to the Char River. Maximum heights reach 1,608 meters above sea level. Highlands are composed mainly of granites and shales. One of its features are rich deposits of minerals, both gold and other ores, including copper and bronze. This fact played a role in the fact that since ancient times people have inhabited this area, smelting metals and creating powerful cultural centers and mysterious artifacts. One of the most mysterious places on its own right is the foot of the Kajabas mountain, where up to now the ancient monument of baur has been preserved, which still causes many conjectures and disputes. Rock shelter baur. What secrets do its rock drawings store? Other researchers try to figure out the mystery of drawings. Many points of view arose about the fact what was painted here and what the person was trying to portray. What else the foot of the Kozhin hill hides in itself? We can say that this object was investigated not only from the point of view of history, its origin, some archaeological data, but also from the position of philosophical understanding of the person who drew these images. Why did the ancient people build these amazing stone structures? On the territory of the complex, there is an observatory which was used once in ancient times. It was built about 7,000 years ago. Unique artifacts of the ancient sanctuary of baur. Coming up next. Almost 10,000 years ago, the Pleistocene ended the last glacial epoch. The Earth's surface, freed from the ice that covered it, acquired a modern landscape, modern natural and climatic zones were established, and along with it, today's animal and plant world. All this contributed to the fact that people quickly settled in new territories. The epoch of the Paleolithic and after the Mesolithic was replaced by the Neolithic, the first step of man from the processing of stone to metals. This new stage in the development of human civilization was marked by the emergence of new forms of primitive art and the creation of ornaments using not only processed stones but also ceramics, as well as the creation of new tools for hunting and labor. But ancient people were concerned not only with survival issues. Thousands of years ago, people thought about the meaning and finitude of being, the origin of natural phenomena, and the great powers that govern the universe. Ancient monument of the Neolithic times, baur is located 35 kilometers south of Ust-Kamenogorsk in the Kolbinsk Mountains. The first mention of it refers to the end of the 19th century, but only from the 1980s scientists finally paid attention to the mysterious complex in the open air. Hello, you're watching program Time Puzzle. I am your host, Sergei Alexeyanak. During our visit to East Kazakhstan, our film crew could not ignore the place that attracts scientists, researchers and tourists, baur Tract. In 2012, under the auspices of the East Kazakhstan Museum Reserve, a unique open-air museum was organized here. Galina Petenyova has been in charge of the scientific department studying the baur historical archaeological complex for 5 years now. As the archaeologists said, this huge territory with a radius of about 15 kilometers is an ancient sanctuary. This centron, one of the main riddles which gave the name to the whole tract, is the rock shelter baur. It is located at the foot of the southwestern slope of Mount Kozhinbai, at an altitude of about 5 meters from its foot. Its length is 9 meters, the maximum width is 4 and the height is about 2. Here are drawings made with mineral paint, red ochre. The drawings are dated somewhere before the Neolithic age, or they transition to the beginning of the Bronze Age. It is somewhere in the 3rd millennium BC. These drawings as a whole are about 5,000 years old. In total, about 80 drawings were found in the rock shelter representing both geometric signs as well as the figure of an inverted goat, anthropomorphic figures, an image of a cart on disc-shaped wheels and boats. For the first time, these drawings were carefully studied by Professor Zainullah Samashev, and a detailed description of them was included in his monograph Rock Carvings of the Upper Irtysh. The scientist points out that this type of drawings, namely the one that were applied on the rocks by ochre and not dislodged on them by special devices, are very rare, which undoubtedly indicates their special purpose. Samashev dates their appearance around the end of the 3rd, the beginning of the 2nd millennium BC. But another researcher in this area, a writer and local historian, Yevgeny Kudakov, considers the images to be more ancient, referring them to the 7th, 6th millennium BC. There are also various versions of the designation of rock paintings of baur. The main points of view, the first is that, well, what a person did, that's what he painted. He domesticated animals. He drew the figure of an inverted goat. There was a wagon. Wheeled vehicles, he drew it too. Some primitive dwellings, such as a hut of a triangular shape. But he did not forget himself either. While such a schematic image of a man, as small children draw stick to a stick, and it is a portrait of a human being. Petroglyphs are found on the rocks in the baur. For example, here is a herd of deer. By the way, this proves that the area was inhabited a few thousand years ago. But the fact that rituals were held here is obvious because the drawings were carved. These are images of goats, images of deer, some other animals. In addition, fragments of ceramics are washed out during the rain or during the standing of snow. This indicates that they apparently brought some sacrificial food during some rituals of commemoration, and there they left them between stones while these pots were left between the rocks. Then they were beaten and then they were carried by sand. And now they are washed by rain and we find them. The fact that fragments of this pottery are different says that this happened more than once, starting from the thickness of the walls of the vessels and finishing with color and so on. On the other hand, scientists of archaeology connect the rock paintings with the ancient rituals. The fact that they are made with red ochre, according to some sources, can symbolize the color of the blood of sacrificed animals. According to the most common version is that some sort of ritual scene is depicted in the rock shelter, because the rock shelter itself is considered to be the place where all sorts of rituals were held. And what exactly the ritual depicted? It is difficult to say, and it is very difficult to explain. But if you disassemble semantically, for example, some elements and motives, then what can be revealed here? Again, first, the wagon. A wagon is a symbol of the sun. It was believed in ancient times that it was on the chariot, in its divine chariot, and the sun made its way across the sky. Figure of a goat. A goat in ancient traditions is a symbol of fertility. The fact that the goat is depicted in an inverted form could mean that the deity has died, because any inverted image always symbolizes a non-living energy. A symbol of fertility, a goat, died. God of fertility is dead. It could well correspond to some seasonal calendar cycle, say the autumn-winter period. This stone of a strange form, in fact, an ancient altar on which priests offered sacrifices. In many ancient traditions, shamans, priests, used this kind of places for predictions, rituals, and so on. If we carry out the most accessible analogies and refer, for example, to the history of ancient Greece, and in particular to the sanctuary in Delphi, then there the Pythia, at the time of the prediction, she had to sit on the tripod. And on the ceramics of the ancient Greek, on many of these vessels, the Pythonies are depicted on just these tripods. In the upper part of the stone arch of the rock shelter, a natural hole is located, surprisingly reminiscent of the stylized form of the human heart. According to researchers, the shaman descended through it, which symbolized the descent into the realm of the dead. This corresponds to the ancient idea of the universe when people had three vertical world kingdoms. The upper world, where the gods dwelt, middle inhabited by people, and lower entities where the souls of the departed were sent. The shaman, descending through this hole, conditionally descended into the world of spirits. The Urankay River flows literally in the center of the entire tract. The ancient people believed that it was the border dividing the realm of the living and the kingdom of the dead. In general, any temple connects two worlds, any church, because people come here to the temple in order to not only turn to the realm of the dead, but on the contrary, with some life-affirming requests and so on. They ask for good life from the gods, from spirits, and so on. Therefore, it was such a place. I think people came here and performed rituals on different occasions, including some life-asserting rituals. There may be healing and so on. Maybe they looked for predictions. Therefore, I'm not going to risk and say that it was the kingdom of the dead. Director of the Public Foundation in Eurasia Times Codes, Anna Smagulova for a long time has been studying the history of these sacred places of East Kazakhstan. She visited here, and here are the impressions she had from the very first meeting with baur. And when we got up there, I was surprised to find this hole above. It seems to have a definite shape of the heart, and we were trying to catch the point where it would be possible, for example, to see the polar star, which is the orientation of all this astronomical practice. Many researchers do consider a rock shelter with a hole a prototype of a modern telescope, with the help of which ancient astronomers conducted observations of the starry sky. And the main role in the proof of this theory is played by rock paintings discovered in this mysterious place. A hypothesis about the connection between these images and astronomy was put forward by the well-known Russian scientist, archaeologist, culturologist Leonid Masadolov in the 1990s, who studied this object from the point of view of the astroarchaeological approach. Astroarchaeology was first used by the professor of Boston University, an employee of the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory, Gerald Hawkins, famous for his studies of the famous Stonehenge complex. His book, Deciphered Stonehenge, co-authored with John White and published in 1965, was a sensation. But the pioneer of this science is rightly considered the English astrophysicist Joseph Norman Lockyer, who studied a number of historical objects on the territory of the Middle East, Egypt, Greece, and Britain at the turn of the 19th, 20th centuries, and wrote about this a book, Dawn of Astronomy. But science has been developing precisely in the second half of the 20th century, when scientists begin to study ancient objects from the point of view of their astronomical orientation on the terrain. It is believed that in the rock shelter there was a stationary point where the person was sitting, looking into this hole, and that segment of the sky, the starry sky, an ancient man needed it to watch this starry sky. And here are some constellations that the man applied on the cave rocks.
Еще в 2000 году мы посетили здесь грот с рисунками
Back in 2000, we visited the grotto with drawings made with ochre. And after that, sometime later, a drawing from Samashev's book Petroglyphs of Upper Priirtysh fell into my hands.
Петроглифы Верхнего Прииртышья. В этой книге была иллюстрация этих петроглифов.
In this book, there was an illustration of these petroglyphs of the grotto at Baur. When I began to study, it immediately occurred to me that it was not just images of some kind of symbols. Vladimir Ikonikov is a design engineer by profession. As a hobby, he has been studying the ancient complex of Akbaur for 15 years already. It is he who is a striking supporter of the theory that this rock shelter was the observation point of ancient astronomers, and the drawings on the walls represent nothing more than a map of the constellations. The researcher is sure that this rock shelter is an ancient device with the help of which the starry sky was observed in antiquity. Obtained knowledge astronomers of the past left on the stone walls in the form of schematic images, whose hidden meaning was clear only to them and carefully hid from the uninitiated.
Древние астрономы это не были простые люди, это не были земледельцы, это не были охотники или пастухи.
Ancient astronomers, these were not ordinary people. There were no farmers, they were not hunters or shepherds. It was a special sacred caste of astronomers who kept knowledge. And they were not kept for posterity, for broad part of society, so to speak, warning, and kept as a sacred secret. Having skills in astronomy, the researcher collated images of rock carvings with a map of the starry sky. The result surprised and simultaneously inspired Ikonikov for further search. In his opinion, a wide strip of large inscriptions going obliquely through the entire drawing are zodiac constellations which he identified by a star map. But then, another mystery awaited him.
Самое крупное созвездие в этом гроте изображено.
The largest constellation in this rock shelter depicted the constellation of the Centaur. This constellation of the southern sky, which is now from our latitudes, from the Akbaur, is not visible at all. The question immediately arose: why and how could ancient astronomers several thousand years ago depict this constellation, and with such great accuracy, while when you compare it with a star chart, it falls one-on-one to this card? With further study, it was found that all the constellations are depicted in this position. The axis of the Earth would be in a different position. The theory of the displacement of the axis of the Earth and the change of poles is widely developed by many scientists and researchers, but it has not yet received its scientific confirmation. But it is possible that the traces of this event in the distant past may well prove to be fixed in ancient rock carvings. Not only the rock shelter contains mysterious secrets, the whole surrounding area seemed to embody the idea of the ancients about the universe becoming in reality a single sacral whole. The conventional center of Akbaur sanctuary is Sorok in a mountain, which has a height of 841 meters. It is shaped like a regular pyramid. The second landmark of this region is the Kozhin-Bai hill. Its height is 801 meters. The legend says its name was given in the 19th century by the name of the well-to-do person Kozhin-Bai, who grazed his fat cattle here. But there is another version that the name of the mountain gained thanks to its top. It has a very interesting shape, this mountain. It has two peaks, one bigger and one smaller, connected by such, let's say, an isthmus, a ridge. And when you look at this mountain from the south, it really looks like a baggage bag, which Kazakhs use to this day in their household. In Kazakh language, the saddlebag sounds like kozhin, and the prefix "bay" can only emphasize the significance of this peak for people who have lived here since ancient times. Moreover, there is a theory that its origin is not entirely natural.
Седловина на горе, она имеет природу рукотворную. Когда-то в незапамятные...
Saddle on the mountain, it has the nature torch. Once upon a time, the mountain range was flat, but some kind of necessity forced the people of that time to break the ridge, throw stones off the slope. They still lie here, and to transform the extremity of the mountain into a pyramid. Indeed, it is incomprehensible. Nature herself took care of giving this place a halo of mystery, or did people supplement the surrounding landscape with formations of strange shapes? Everywhere at the foot of the hill you can see a strange form of deepening and formation in the rock. The average person looking at them can think of the most improbable images about giants and traveling through time. This is the so-called cultural phenomenon of cup-shaped hollows. This is how it is called in the scientific literature. Such objects, let's say, they are found all over the globe. They are called differently. They are called fingers when the groove is round and not very large. Sometimes it is called bowls when the deepening is of medium size. They can be generally huge. Here on the Karabas we have such deepenings which have a diameter of 4 meters. That is, it's a whole bath. When it rains, it is filled with rainwater. It turns into a whole pool. They can be both horizontal and vertical. And sometimes they can be in the form of a trace from a human feet as a trace of man. He is barefooted and there are so-called shoddy traces, as if an imprint. We have them on the cover of the rock shelter. Such imprints follow us. There are prints that very much resemble a palm of a human's hand. Scientists put forward the theory that such formations were the primary form of domestication by a person of the surrounding space. In the future, along with the development of civilization, it is replaced by rock carvings that already transmit specific images of animals or people. But not only these hollows cause numerous questions from scientists and researchers of the area. Many stones and their location also make you lose yourself in riddles. On the slopes of this mountain, on the tops of ridges, everywhere the stones bear traces of human hands. These are natural formations, but slightly corrected. Either they were corrected by the environment, or that specific shape was given to them and focused on certain points of the horizon. Now they stand there since ancient times, unshakably and fixed this point, indicating that a long time ago there was a certain event in this place. One of the local mysteries are the remains of megalithic structures which have traces of artificial processing. Their distinctive feature is that they are strictly oriented around the world. For the first time, the idea that baur is represented not only as a temple complex, but also as an ancient observatory was put forward by Yevgeny Kordak, a writer and local historian who has been studying history of East Kazakhstan for many years. This theory is actively pursued and developed by the local historian Nikolai Topolnyak, who devoted 10 years of his life to the research of the baur complex. On the territory of the baur complex, there is an observatory that was used once in ancient times. It was built about 7,000 years ago to observe the movement of the sky, the movement of the moon, and the sun in the sky. Observations were conducted mainly by recording the points of sunrise and moonset over the horizon. The center of the ancient observatory, according to researchers, is so-called a chronograph, a stone structure of very decent size.
Его устроили по принципу камеры обскуры. Устроили путем.
It was installed like a camera obscura. A part of a stone breed was removed, a spur was destroyed. The platform on which you now stand was formed. Behind me, there was a remnant from the spur. It was leveled, the access plates were removed and dropped. They are lying there, and behind the spur these plates lie. And they made 3 cracks. These cracks play the role of lenses. As on any camera obscura, the sunbeam passing through the crack falls on the pad and forms a sunspot, a sunny bunny. Camera obscura, in translation from Latin, a dark room. This is the simplest device that allows you to obtain an optical image of objects. Camera obscura is a light-proof box of rectangular shape with a small hole in one of the walls, where on the opposite wall there is a frosted glass or ordinary white paper. The rays of light reflected from the object on which the camera is directed are reflected and penetrate into the interior, creating on the matte surface an inverted image of the object. It is the camera principle of obscura that formed the basis for the work of the first cameras. Here the principle of a wall with a matte surface performs, so-called as the target wall.
Солнце движется по небосклону, солнечный зайчик по площадке. В месте, где
The sun moves across the sky, the sunny bunny on the platform. In a place where the sunny bunny disappeared at the time of sunset, a mark was made. Each year at the point where a sunny bunny disappeared, you can see a mark. If you observe all the points of the extinction of the sun's rays, starting from the shortest day in the year to the longest day of the year, you can get the scale with a precision of 1 day. This means that the observers created the calendar. The opposite wall is what's left of the dismantled spur. At the bottom of this wall, at the very end of the site, there is a scale on which the marks are made, where the sunny bunny is extinguished. And there should be 365 marks in half. While the part is preserved, the part is brought somewhere under the ground. It was very long ago. Another design on this site is striking too. Several stone slabs installed in a row, all of them different form and, as Nikolai Topolnyak thinks, by their use.
22 марта. Солнечный луч, солнечный зайчик.
On the 22nd of March, a sunbeam, a sunny bunny passing through a slot that is behind me, moves further along the tops of these plates and falls on the last plate in the row, which has the form of a sun disk. This means that passing through this ray, a day is fixed, the day of the equinox, twice a year. And so this chronograph could divide the calendar into 4 equal parts. The whole year into 4 equal parts. Twice the sunbeam passed from one point to another in a year, and twice it crossed the slab. If you look strictly in the northern direction, you can see a white stone sat on the top of a hill, the so-called V0 Karakshi. Literal translation, beholder. Such structures can often be seen on the tops of the hills and mountains of the East Kazakhstan region. There is a version that the shepherds dig them for protection from the wolves, but according to the other version, these stones serve to indicate the direction of the location of the promised land, bearing different names for different peoples: Jeruik, Shambhala, Belavodya. Often such stones or columns were made of small stones on the passes, where they are installed in gratitude to the spirits that they gave people the passage through the mountains. Strict orientation of the whole complex on the geographical sides of the world suggests that it was an ancient observatory, and indeed, if we look at it, we see a white visor oriented strictly to the north. And if we look here, we will see the Sorokin mountain, which stands for the west. The ancient ancient city of Akaim is considered to be a mysterious structure, an ancient fortified settlement, the date of creation of which, according to the scientists, can be the 2nd millennium BC. Akaim is located in Russia, not far from the city of Chelyabinsk. Discovered in June 1987 by the detachment of the Ural-Kazakhstan expedition, it still remains one of the most mysterious places of our planet. At the same time, the use of the sun as the main tool behind observation raises certain questions among scientists related to the work of this ancient structure. The very process of reconstruction, how this device worked, is a complex process. It is very difficult for us now to reconstruct everything like this. It's good when the sun is there, and what if there is no sun? Then how does this device work? Despite many versions of the purpose and operation of the ancient complex of baur, now this is the place that attracts many people here. To many people, visit to these places represents the opportunity to touch something secret and sacred. That's what the traveler Ulan Kunushpaev told the crew of the Time Puzzle program.
Баур, о нем я просто неоднократно видел отзывы от других путешественников.
I just saw the reviews about this place from other travelers many times. Several times I passed by on the road, and each time I did not realize that this is the very place about which they wrote in their reviews. Just the other day I got acquainted with all the material, and today I arrived specifically here. There are a lot of places where you can just sit, think, reminisce the nature, just be alone with yourself, even regardless of the fact that there may be strangers here. There may be tourists. Anyway, the place itself, the energy here is just impressive. Still very nice to be here, and now, despite the fact that it was rainy today, it's still quite warm here, very nice. The place itself welcomes you with a friendly atmosphere. Many names of this area have a prefix ak, which means white. Ak bastau, ak baur. This is a sacred color in ancient Turks, symbolizing purity. The megalithic complex of Baur is, as you know, one of the central objects of local narrative. The fact is that this very old, so to speak, ancient laboratory attracted the attention of so many researchers. And the most interesting is that the Baur is a place for such practical field research of culturologists and philosophers. We can say that this object was investigated not only from the point of view of history, its origin, some archaeological data, but also from the position of philosophical understanding of the person who applied the images. There are two more versions of the origin of the name Baur. It is believed that this toponym has other meanings, both literal, the white foot, and one more, the white younger brother, Baurim, a concept towards which the Kazakhs have a special attitude built on related ties. Not every object receives such attention, such understanding. It forces people to produce these new, so to speak, researchers. And I think that due to this, the popularization of this object was carried out among the residents of the Republic and the locals. It's not for nothing that many tourists come here to really see this unique laboratory. But what is this complex? Sanctuary or ancient observatory? What kind of forces attract people here from antiquity to our days? These are the questions that are not yet answered today, and this prepares foundation for many opinions. And this, I think, is wonderful, that there are different versions and different people come in different ways with some very interesting ideas and solutions of how this could all work, because it is yet very difficult for us to explain all this. While scientists continue to study this place, putting forward at times the most fantastic theories regarding the origin and use of objects located here, whether it is a rock shelter, a ritual platform, or a strange form of deepening in a rock. And the crew of Time Puzzle program, as if touched something sacred and distant during the time spent among the stones that still keep their secret. Studies of the aquarium complex began relatively recently, and now there are heated debates around it. What it really is, an ancient sanctuary, a stone observatory, or a place that combines both of these principles. Only one thing is known for sure: this sacred territory keeps in itself layers of different cultures that existed here since ancient times. I am Sergei Alexionik, and you watched the Time Puzzle on Kazakh TV.